Now to Australia, where they're facing those massive fires, already among the worst in that country's history.
It's been labelled the worst fire season ever recorded, an apocalypse, a nightmare, and like looking into the gates of hell.
Good evening. It's a health emergency that has already killed 41 people in China, and tonight there's confirmation the coronavirus has reached Australia.
With shelves stripped bare as Australians prepare for a pandemic. Take a look at this. We went out to take a look for ourselves yesterday, and there wasn't a toilet roll in sight.
The world has been chaotic this year. We've had global pandemics, we've had worldwide climate change issues, but more so, the early childhood space has been so complex. We want to talk to you about something that we did that addressed that complexity. The world of early childhood education is complex, with a complex milieu of policy, practice, and the way that we go about our lives in early childhood education. Sometimes we need a theoretical lens to think through. I want to talk to you about the theoretical lens of complexity leadership theory. This theory can help us understand and work in the early childhood education sector by thinking about the world that is complex in the complex adaptive system. Complex adaptive systems are just like early childhood education settings. They can be chaotic, although that chaos is controlled. They're very interesting places and lots happens in those spaces. And emergent leadership is an important component of this. When we think about complexity leadership within complex adaptive systems, we can see that it can be self-organising, that it can be emergent, and that it can be producing great creative and innovative results if the control is decentralised. The initiative that we put in place when COVID-19 began was to support workforce sustainability and also to ensure or help to ensure the quality of early childhood education settings that were existing in a very complex and ever-changing landscape. Our team at Early Start saw some of those challenges of the COVID-19 environment, and we knew that there were challenges to workforce and therefore children's outcomes, particularly in the regional and remote areas. So our response was rapid and multi-layered and multi-dimensional, and it occurred within a complexity framework. When we think about that framework of complexity leadership theory, we can see it in three dimensions: the administrative dimension, the adaptive dimension, and the enabling dimension. We're going to talk a little bit about what we did and where that fits within complexity leadership theory. So Kim, tell us about what the initiative was.
The initiative was to create some momentum and to be able to stay connected with our engagement centres, to be able to work with centres to deliver some professional development, to keep a focus on quality, even in the times when everything else seemed to be grinding to a halt.
Kim, I think that we adapted some of the things that we already had in order to deliver on this. So what did we actually adapt?
We had to significantly adapt the way that we worked as a team. We moved to a remote model where we weren't actually working physically in the same space. We had to embrace new technologies. We had to work out how to embrace Zoom. We needed to think about what our services and the sector needed. And we really needed to adapt the way that we worked in really flexible and creative ways.
Now we had some areas of administration that we also had to consider. This is one of the other areas of complexity leadership. Jo, you've done a lot of work in the administrative element of this initiative. What sorts of things did we have to do?
Well, in the beginning, we had to support each other when we were delivering the professional development workshops, and then that that evolved into something that we see today as a very effective way of delivering the professional development. So we started by supporting each other, and then we had to really investigate a platform that we could use to enable educators to book in fairly easily and register for the professional development program that we were delivering. So we had to research and try things and adapt how we did it, and it brings us to what we're using today. In that we've found a fantastic way that educators can book in.
So what we were doing then was delivering free professional learning to the sector, and we didn't put any limitations on that. Even though we wanted to focus on the regional and remote services, what we actually did was made it broadly available to everybody. That way it just was creating its own movement. We were able to actually engage people internationally as well, and that was one of the exciting elements of it. And we used all of the free resources that we could under the circumstances to create this great outcome. Now, Liz, what were some of the things that we already had that we used? I'm thinking about the professional learning that was already written.
Yes, so we were very lucky in the fact that we had quite a bit of evidence-based professional development already available to us, and we had the expertise on our team to be matched with each of those packages, and then offer those up to the sector and match that with their particular needs at the time, so that it was relevant and meaningful to them. And one of the things that we did notice out of this process was that we started off by getting, one person from a centre, perhaps the director, and then once the director had gone back to their service and explained what the value of that workshop, then we would end up getting the whole team along to the next workshop. So that was a really lovely part of the momentum that Kim had talked about earlier.
So in thinking about what this learning initiative has done, I think that the impact that we've seen across the people that we've been working with, and now I think we've probably delivered to over 2,500 people, that was unprecedented that we could see this take up, is that what we saw was people changing practice as well, that they were initiating with children and with families. So there was a bit of excitement in that. We also found that people were motivated along the way, really enthusiastic and excited. The sorts of things that we needed in place were those things that you were talking about, Liz, the knowledge of the team, the existing resources that we had, and we used our skills and our dispositions of motivation and excitement in getting something done. Kim, what are some of the things that we saw that were changes to ourselves in this and things that it enabled in our own practice?
I think it was a lot of confidence that we could be quite flexible and we could be innovative. One of the things I noticed with the team is that even though we weren't working on site together, we used the technology, we used WebEx, we used Zoom, we used the different platforms to stay connected in that virtual space. And we were also on the journey at the same time of learning about that technologies with the participants in the workshop. So we were able to actually talk to them about, some of those troubleshooting and some of those nerves about using, the technology. So I think that was something that was really beneficial. I think we also learnt a lot from our participants. So we were listening, there was lots of feedback. Often people would stay on for conversations at the end. Initially we were asking for the feedback and evaluation through the chat box at the end, so we got that immediate feedback about what people wanted to implement and put in place. So we had a really good opportunity to be very responsive as we delivered each of the workshops as well. So I think that we learnt that we could be quite flexible and agile and work with the sector in creative ways.
I'd just like to add to that, Kim, the experiences that we had when particularly international participants and educators hung around at the end of the workshop and talked to us for quite a time, and sometimes that would be midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning for them. So they were really passionate about sharing their experiences that they've found in their responses to COVID as well, and sharing our experiences and really collaborative practice that was happening from that as well.
So that was a really unexpected outcome as well, wasn't it, of the initiative?
I think it highlighted the fact that we were able to turn something that was quite negative into something that was very positive, and giving each of those participants who engaged in our workshops something really positive to focus on and take back and practice in the workplace.
So if we think about this through this complexity leadership lens, these were the sorts of things that came together: the knowledge, the skills, the dispositions that everybody had, the sort of resources that we needed as well. But it's also that lack of fear that something is not going to always be in control as well. It's important to let these things emerge and to be creative as well, because that sees leadership emerging. So here we are, signing off from the Discovery Space at Early Start at the University of Wollongong. We just want to say, give complexity leadership a go. Think about what emerges, what is creative, what's exciting, and you don't just have to have one person steering the ship. Great outcomes can come from a shared leadership and a collective approach to initiatives. So, come on board and think about complexity leadership theory and complex adaptive systems to get great creative results.